So, chapter 13, mortgages. This is the first of three chapters on mortgages and lending. So, let's get started, shall we? So, in this
Yep.
chapter, we're going to describe the provisions of a note and a mortgage. We're going to learn about trust deeds. We're going to explain various methods of satisfying or transferring a mortgage, including the process of foreclosure. So
Ooh.
let's start off with the word mortgage, note and mortgage, but there's two uh, parts to a mortgage, the mortgage and the note. So a mortgage is a pledge of property that serves as security or collateral for a loan. That's that promise to pay that you're making. And there's two parts to the mortgage and the note. So, what is that promise to pay saying? Well, we'll look at that in just a second. Let's first learn about the second part, the note. A note, or in some other states, they use bonds. We don't use bonds in New Jersey, but they do the same thing. A note is a financing instrument that lays out all the terms, the amount borrowed, the interest rate, the terms of repayment, the monthly payment amount, uh, which would make the borrower personally liable for the full amount owed, even in the event of foreclosure. So if the lender doesn't get all their money back after they foreclose on a property and sell it at auction, it's the note that makes the borrower personally liable for the full amount owed. So they could still chase after that person for the balance of what they borrowed and owe still to the lender. So that's the note. The note is the financing instrument. It talks about all the financing. The mortgage itself is the promise to pay. That's the
Mm.
promise that's given by the borrower to the lender. In exchange, the lender gives the borrower a loan. Now, so what does this promise to pay say? It says if the borrower fails to pay the lender back the money they borrowed, the lender can foreclose on them to regain ownership of the property that was pledged as collateral for the loan, sell it at auction, and then use the proceeds to pay off the debt. But remember, the note is what holds the borrower personally liable for the full amount originally borrowed, even if that is not enough to pay off the debt. So that's what allows the lender to continue going after the borrower for any outstanding balance, even after foreclosure and auction. So the mortgagor is the borrower. They're the one who's giving their promise to pay. Remember, words that end in OR, it's the person who's giving whatever the root word is. So what is a mortgage? It's a promise to pay. And that promise is given by the borrower. Therefore, the mortgagor is the borrower, right? You can't forget that. Sing it. The mortgagor is the borrower. And the note is the financing instrument. All right. So, mortgage is the pledge as security for the loan, or the promise. The pledge is a promise. And the note is the financing instrument. Needs to know for exams. All right, so let's highlight a mortgage is the pledge of real property that serves as security or collateral for a loan. And there's two documents involved, the note, which is the financing instrument, and the mortgage itself, which is the security instrument. And the mortgagor is the borrower, and therefore the lender is the mortgagee. And then there's a term down here, hypothecation. Hypothecation. You're not going to get a question about hypothecation, but you may see it as a wrong answer option on exams. But what exactly is hypothecation? Well, it's a term used to describe pledging of property as security for a loan without giving up that property. So, a mortgage loan is an example of hypothecation. The borrower is making a promise to the lender that if they don't pay back the money, the lender can come after the house and sell it at auction. But they're not giving up that property. It works the opposite as how a pawn shop works. If you ever needed money, you could take something valuable you have, take it to a pawn shop, they'll value it for you, and then they'll hold on to it and they'll lend you money. If you don't come back to pay back that money, the pawn shop will keep your item and then sell it and then make money off of that. That's how pawn shops work. But hypothecation, you're not giving the property in advance for them to hold on to. You're actually living in the property. So it's only the pledging of property as security, but without giving it up. If they want it, they got to come get it. That's not how pawn shops work. You leave the property with them, right? So that's hypothecation, an upper crusty sounding word. Sounds like a word rich people use, right? Hypothecation. Pledging a property as security of a loan without giving up that property. Can we switch slides? Are we good?
All good.
All right. So the mortgagor is the borrower. They're the owner of the property, and the mortgagee, therefore, is the lender. Hypothecation would be that pledging of property as security for the loan without surrendering possession of the property. And this just gives you that same example that I just explained to you, that how hypothecation works and how mortgage is an example of hypothecation. It's the opposite of how pawn shops work. All right. That's just that. New Jersey is a judicial foreclosure state. If someone's going to foreclose on you, it has to be done through the court system. We don't use trust deeds here in the state of New Jersey, where a third party will hold on to your deed. And if you default on the loan, they'll give the deed to the lender. So it's a lot smoother process. There's no, it doesn't have to go through the court systems, and foreclosure is a lot swifter. But New Jersey is a judicial foreclosure state, so it has to go through the court systems, and there's a process to it. So a foreclosure using trust deeds and deeds of trusts would be a lot quicker to do. All right. The note is the same thing that does the same thing as a bond, but New Jersey uses notes, not bonds. It is the financing instrument. It's executed by the borrower. That means it's signed by the borrower. It states the amount that's borrowed, the time and method of repayment, the term, the rate of interest, the monthly payment amount. It's signed by all interested parties, and it's what makes the borrower personally liable for the full amount owed, even after foreclosure. Ooh. So let's look at some of the provisions of the mortgage document. It's executed by the owner, the borrower. It has to state the legal description that identifies the property pledged as security for the loan. It identifies who the lender and borrower are. It should be signed by everybody involved. It identifies the obligations of the borrower and the rights of the lender. Now, default or breach of contract is any time contractual obligations are not carried out. The borrower's in default and the lender can foreclose. Before this happens, though, the lender will generally give the borrower 30 days to cure any defaults. Now, what are the obligations, the duties of the mortgagor? That's the borrower. Well, we all know number one is if you're the borrower, you have to pay back the loan according to the terms in the note. You also have to pay, otherwise you get foreclosed on. You also have to pay all the real estate taxes, because if you don't, then the house can get foreclosed and even wipe out the first mortgage. You have to maintain property insurance in case the house burns down, the lender's collateral is insured. If you don't maintain property insurance, technically you're in default and they could foreclose on you. Okay, all this makes sense so far?
Yeah.
They can also, the borrower also must obtain the lender's permission before doing any major renovations on their house. What? Did you know
Yeah.
that?
That I was reading doesn't make sense.
Yeah, technically you're in default and the lender can foreclose on you if you start doing major renovations to your house without your lender's permission.
Now, what's considered major renovations?
You get the kitchen, you remodel it, or you put an addition on the house, or things like that, major renovations. Because what's the first step in that renovation? Other than going to get the permits. After you get the permits, you go there. What's the first step in doing the construction? You got to gut it, right? Now, what happens is you gut the kitchen, you're about to do the remodel, and you lose your job. Is your primary goal to finish the kitchen?
No.
Or how am I going to make my next mortgage payment? So you may not have a chance to finish off that kitchen because you're going to now be watching your nickels and dimes, and let's just say it gets to the point now that you're missing mortgage payments, the lender needs to foreclose on you. What exactly are they getting? They're getting a house without a kitchen. Did you just devalue their collateral, the house? Can most people buy a house without a kitchen? Would
Yeah.
most people want to buy a house without a kitchen?
Nope.
Most people get loans to purchase houses, and most lenders won't give you a loan to buy a house that doesn't have a kitchen. All right, you'd need to get a special construction loan from that for that, or you use cash. Plus, the house will be a lot cheaper. So you just devalued their collateral, and you're not supposed to do that. So therefore, technically, you're in default, and they could foreclose on you. So what you're supposed to first do is let the lender know you're going to do these renovations. Let them share with them the copy of the plans, who the contractors are going to be, and where you're getting the money from. Do you have the money to finish the job that you want to start? They want to make sure all that stuff is in place before you ever get started so that the job can get done and they're not going to lose, their collateral is not going to be devalued. That's why. I mean, yeah, anybody here have a friend that ever started that they got the forever construction job going on at their house? Maybe you, I don't know. You got your forever construction job going on in your house. You got one project going on, takes forever. And then when that project's done, another project starts and it goes on forever and ever.
No.
No, you don't have any friends like that? Got plenty. Maybe.
Sure.
I had one guy as a friend. He gutted out his kitchen and his dining room area, and it was only like the framing of the walls was up. There wasn't even sheetrock there because he was running new wiring, did all that stuff, was going to put down new floors. But in the meantime, he just had the plywood down, and he was like this for actually a couple of years. He did not finish the project. It was just like all you saw was the framing for the walls with the electrical wire hanging there. It was when I come home from work, I'm always tired, don't want to start doing a construction project, so these projects take forever. And one wife later, he finishes the job. Then the next step is he blows out a hole, cuts out a hole from the dining room area to the backyard. He cuts a huge hole out so that he could install some nice sliding glass doors, which he did. Just be careful. The first step is a doozy because he didn't install the deck yet that it's supposed to step out onto. It's like the forever project that's going on and on, So that's why the lenders want to make sure that everything is in place. You got the funds to do it, who the contractor is, or is it you that's going to be doing it? They want to make sure this stuff's going to get done. The borrower has to maintain their property too. You can't just let it get. I mean, you can even get foreclosed on if you just let your grass get overgrown.
Mm.
Wow.
Some people, because the lender may think that you've abandoned the property. You're letting the grass get well overgrown. Now you got like little trees growing in your front yard and all over the place. It becomes a public health issue that cities will then start sending landscapers over there to cut your stuff down and bill you for it, or your lender for it. if you're not responding. And then a municipality can even move forward with starting to give huge fines of thousands of dollars a day for this if you don't fix the problem. This was happening a lot when the mortgage meltdowns and people were abandoning their properties. Lenders were being held responsible for maintaining them when the homeowner didn't. And the cities were even starting to foreclose on these properties because they were becoming public health issues. And then securing permission before adding second mortgage within 30 days to make sure that the primary lien holder remains the primary lien holder, and nobody's going to get in there and record their lien before them. Okay, so what's the first step in foreclosure? Page 257, you need to take these notes. Write down all this stuff. So provisions for defaults, right? The first step in foreclosure is the acceleration clause. It assists the lender in foreclosure. So if the borrower defaults, the lender has the right to accelerate the maturity of the debt to declare the entire debt due and owing immediately. And the acceleration clause is the first step in foreclosure. However, even before this, once you start falling behind on your mortgage payments, they're going to record a lis pendens in the public record. What's a lis pendens? A public notice of possible future legal action against the property. Other clauses, we have the defeasance clause. The defeasance clause kind of sounds like defeated. When you've defeated that loan, you paid that baby off. The lender has no further claim on the property. The mortgagee, the lender, they have no further claim on the property. So the defeasance clause is what requires the lender. Now, they don't remove any liens that they have on the property from the public record. You know, anytime you have documents added to the public record, it's there forever. All they do is they just add another document. So once they add a lien to the in the public records, they never remove the lien, even after you paid the loan off. They just add another document to the public records that says the lien had been satisfied. Hopefully they do it like they're supposed to. But they're human. Sometimes they forget. And then that could cause problems in the future. So a lien, the defeasance clause kind of sounds like defeated. Defeasance defeated, defeasance defeated. When you've defeated the loan, you paid it off, you killed it off. It's the defeasance clause that requires the lender to go back in the public records, add another document called a satisfaction of lien or satisfaction of mortgage. And that shows that you've paid back the loan in full and the lender has no further claim on the property. When you get a loan, often your lenders will resell that loan. So the buyer who's purchasing that loan, that buyer investor who's buying that loan, they want to ensure that that it is what they say that it is that they're selling. So the investor that's purchasing the loan from your bank, from your lender, they're going to want the borrower to sign an estoppel certificate that verifies all the information about the loan. The original loan amount, what the interest rate is, what the monthly mortgage payment is, yada, yada, yada. Okay, that's called an estoppel certificate. And most lenders will originate a loan to you to buy real estate and then soon after sell that loan to some investor. Then a couple months later, you get a notification that you're now going to be making your mortgage payments to someone else. Okay, that means they sold your loan. Or maybe you'll still make the payments to the same place, but they send you a notification that there's a new owner of the loan. All right, so you did sign an estoppel certificate somewhere in there, whether you know it or not. It could have been just the fact that you make your next mortgage payment. When you make your next mortgage payment, you're verifying the fact that the loan is being sold or was sold. Now, when an investor buys your loan from your lender, they want you to verify all the information of the loan on an estoppel certificate. But they also want that lender to verify what it is that they claim that they're selling them, what the terms of the loan are. So they're going to want them to sign a similar document, but it's not called an estoppel certificate when the lender signs it. That's called a reduction certificate. So that's what I wrote down here. A reduction certificate does the same thing as an estoppel, but it is signed by the lender. And I got a little cross-reference there on page 259 because that's where they discuss reduction certificates, but they don't explain it as simply as I did. So I explained it very simply in a way to understand right next to where estoppel is. Let's keep these things together. Makes it easier to remember. I don't think you're gonna get a question on reduction certificate, but just write it down here anyway. But you probably will get an exam question. You need to know what the estoppel is. So you got about 3 exam questions coming from this page. Let me know when you're done with those notes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So you got first step in foreclosure. Before this, a lis pendens is recorded. You wrote the word lender under mortgagee, and they requires the lender to add another document to the public record called a satisfaction of mortgage. And the reduction certificate does the same thing as an estoppel certificate, but is signed by the lender, page 259. Right? Got all that?
Yep.
All right. What about you, Cal? Good?
Yep, all good.
All right. So here we go. The acceleration clause, first step in foreclosure, assists the lender in foreclosure, allowing them to accelerate the terms of the repayment of the debt, demanding the entire debt due and owing immediately. Prior to enacting the acceleration clause, the lender would file a lis pendens in the public records when the borrower falls behind in their payments. This lis pendens is a public notice of possible future legal action called foreclosure that may be coming soon. The defeasance clause sounds like defeated, and so that when the debt is repaid, the loan has been defeated, the mortgagee, the lender, has no further claim on the property. This clause is what requires the lender to add the satisfaction of lien in the public records, showing it had been repaid in full. It's been satisfied. So any future buyer that does a title search, looking up info about the property, they could see that there's a loan on it. Oh, this loan had been paid off. Okay, so this is how they could make sure that they got good, clear title of the property. Now, if the lender does not record that satisfaction of lien, it could be a little difficult to sell a property because it shows that you got a loan on it still outstanding. Okay, and that could cause all kinds of problems. All right, so if you guys wanted to snap a picture of that, where you get my definitions for it, what you highlighted on the previous page. All
That's
right.
done.
All
My
right.
picture.
Then we have the estoppel certificate. It's when the lender sells a loan, the mortgagor signs to verify contractual terms of the loan. They verify the original loan amount, remaining balance, monthly payment, interest rate, terms of repayment. It does reduction certificate does the same thing as the estoppel certificate, but it's signed by the lender who's selling that loan to verify those same loan terms. And it's given to the investor who buys the loan from the lender. Okay, if you want the definitions that I have here for that, there you go.
Got it.
And the note is a negotiable instrument that could be sold by the lender, who assigns the mortgage to the new owner. Satisfaction of debt is the document that the lender records in the public records as required by the defeasance clause when you paid off that loan and you defeated that baby. Recording mortgages, why does anybody record any document in a public record? To put the world on notice of your interest. And when somebody is recording a lien of sorts, you know, they're basically recording they're holding their place in the event of foreclosure, because liens get repaid according to the order in which they're recorded in the public record, right? That's what establishes their priority. So recording happens in the county where the property is located. It establishes the priority of the lien, and before documents can be recorded, they must be signed and acknowledged. What is an acknowledgement? Well, that's a term we'll need to know. We'll get a definition for that, I think, in a later chapter. But what is an acknowledgement?
Didn't we learn that?
I mean, I brought it up. I mentioned it a couple times, but I don't know if we actually highlighted it anywhere yet. An acknowledgement is when when somebody's signature is verified by a notary public, an attorney, a judge, or some other trusted public official like an elected politician. Trusted, right? That's what an acknowledgement is. It proves that the person who's signing the document is either known by the person who witnessed it, or they checked your ID to verify it. The purpose is to prevent forgeries.
Okay.
Usury. Let's right next to that. It's illegal. Its purpose is usury law's purpose is to prevent loan sharking. So usury is charging an illegally high rate of interest. Usury laws only apply to private parties who lend. That includes seller financing. The purpose of usury laws are to prevent loan sharking. That's like, you know, like back in the day, mafia would lend money to people for 300% interest, you know? And if you didn't pay it back, you get your legs broken, you know? you disappear, you know? So usury laws are there to prevent that type of activity. So New Jersey real estate seller financing. You want to know what the usury laws are that are allowable? Sellers can charge no more than 16% on a first mortgage. However, if it's their primary residence that they're selling, they could charge as much as 30% when they're selling their own primary residence, offering seller financing, and that's still not considered usury. That's allowable. Well, I guess it's no difference than getting your Home Depot credit card, right? You just got a notice in the mail yesterday. As of March, they're going to be changing their terms. Their interest rates are going up to 29.99. And I'm like, well, why am I use the only reason why I would use a Home Depot card is it's easier to track the receipts for stuff if you ever need to return anything, and I buy stuff from them all the time. But otherwise, you want to pay off that card right away. You don't want to collect any interest on that card. Holy crap. Otherwise, I normally use my regular credit card. Okay, so usury. I got a little video about that. Check this out. I got this from a little movie that was made about teaching people the value of money and how lending works in the world and how money gets its value. It's actually made in a cartoon format. I think every kid that's in high school age should be required to watch this. But it's got a neat little portion here about usury laws, and I added it here to our slide. So let's watch.
At one time, charging any interest on a loan was called usury and was subject to severe penalties, including death. Every major religion forbade usury. Most of the arguments made against the practice were moral. It was held that money's only legitimate purpose was to facilitate the exchange of real goods and services. Any form of making money from simply having money was regarded as the act of a parasite or of a thief.
Makes sense to me. Because look, most religions believe, hard work will be your salvation, right? You got to do, everybody got to pay their fair share by doing their part and serving the community and doing the work. And somebody who gets rich off of not working, but simply having money is either a parasite or a thief. All right. So look, and they said every major religion at one point had this belief. Where is that? Where do they have all those religious leaders? There we go. So you got all the different religions here. Let's see, you got Christianity, Jewish, Muslim, and Buddha there. That they all had, or not Buddha, but what's that? The monks. Anyway, you get the idea. All the religions, all the major religions did not believe in usury, and some of them still don't today. Judaism and the Muslim faith, the devout Jews and Muslims, they'll still say, "Hey, it's against my religion to pay to pay interest." I'm still laughing trying to say it, trying to get it out. I mean, we all have to. It's against my religion too. Who the hell wants to pay religion? Who the hell wants to pay interest, right? But no, this is one of their beliefs. They say, no, I don't pay interest. It's against my religion. Okay, well, how do you buy a house? How do you buy a car? How do you buy anything? You got, credit cards charge interest. You go out to the bank to get a loan, they charge interest. How do you function? How do you get these things done? How do you buy a house if you don't pay interest? Well, there's certain types of loan called shared equity mortgage. A shared equity mortgage is one where an investor, sometimes the religious organization itself, will act as the investor and give you the money to buy a house. They don't give it to you, they lend it to you. So what are they getting in return? Well, you have to pay them back. And after you pay at 0% interest, but after you pay them back, they're part owner of the property with you now. So they're going to share in any profits when you sell the property eventually. That's what a shared equity mortgage is. They don't charge you interest on the loan, but the person who's lending you the money becomes kind of a co-owner in the property with you. And they reap the rewards of the sale from the profits. Now, imputed interest. Here's a reason not to like the IRS if you needed another one. If you usury laws prevent a lender from charging you too high of an interest rate. Well, check this out. If you don't charge a high enough interest rate, the IRS can step in, impute a higher interest rate so that they could tax you accordingly and get their fair share so that they could get their piece of the pie. How's that right? I got somebody that's willing to lend me money and charge me a low interest rate, I should be able to get it. What's this crap that the IRS steps in because they want to impute a higher interest rate so that they could make some money out of the deal? How the hell is that legal? How's that not a racket? Right? And they're not targeting poor people. They're not targeting rich people on this either. They're targeting poor people. Well, because it applies to transactions that are $2.8 million or less. So the lender must charge at least 9% or an amount equal to the applicable federal rate, whichever is lower, the AFR, the applicable federal rate. That's the cost of borrowing and lending money to the lenders. So whatever that applicable federal rate is, currently it's less than 9%. So it'll be less than that 9%. So no prepayment penalties are allowed in New Jersey if you pay off your loan earlier than planned. So if you make extra payments towards the principal to pay, that's the amount you borrowed. If you make extra payments towards the principal to pay down your debt sooner, if you get a 30-year mortgage and you pay it off in 20 years, for example, the lender cannot charge you prepayment penalties. So let's highlight that. Under New Jersey law, an institutional lender may not impose a prepayment fee or penalty if that loan is paid off earlier than planned. Keep studying that for exams. No prepayment penalties allowed in New Jersey. No prepayment penalties allowed in New Jersey. No prepayment penalties allowed in New Jersey. That should always be your answer for exam. However, you see, I underlined the word institutional lender. Private lenders, usually commercial loans, they can charge prepayment fees and penalties. Let me give you an example. Where I'm renting my building for the school, my friends used to own that. Him and his two brothers, they used to own the building, and they sold it to the current owner. But before they sold it to the current owner, they had to delay the closing by several months because several years prior, they did a refinancing. And according to that refinancing, this by a commercial loan, this is a commercial lender, private lender, they had to have the loan for X amount of time. Otherwise, they had to pay a prepayment fee or penalty of $75,000. So they delayed the closing for 3 months so that they did not experience that $75,000 prepayment penalty. So prepayment penalties are possible from private lenders, which are commercial loans, considered commercial loans. But what do we got to study for exams? No prepayment penalties allowed in New Jersey. I just wanted to show you it is possible in real life, though, because this is talked about from institutional lenders. And they're not going to try to get you on a gotcha question with institutional versus private lenders on exam. Just study no prepayment penalties allowed in New Jersey. So mortgage on real estate's priority is based on when it was recorded, and home equity loans are often a second mortgage. A subordination agreement is where a lender agrees to be subordinate to another. That means they are dropping back in the lien repayment order, allowing another lender to jump ahead of them. Why would they do this? Usually with a home improvement type loan. That home improvement loan is going to be much smaller than the primary loan, and its purpose is going to be to improve and increase the value of the property anyway. So if the borrower doesn't pay them back, and that home improvement loan company needs to foreclose to get their money back, they're not going to wipe out the position of the primary lien holder because their loan amount is much smaller by comparison. So they don't have to worry about their interest getting wiped out. So that's what a subordination agreement is, where a primary lien holder signs an agreement allowing a junior lien holder to jump up ahead of them. Thus, they're dropping back in the lien repayment order. Okay. And that's usually done with like home improvement loans. That's why I wrote that here. Subordinate. Sub means underneath, right? Beneath, underneath. All right, you all good?
I just want to make a little note. Can you just describe it in your own words again, really quickly? It just makes more sense when you just, simplify. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
I agree.
A primary lien holder agrees to drop back in the repayment order, allowing a smaller loan to jump ahead of them, like a home improvement loan.
Small loan to jump ahead.
Yeah. A primary lien holder agrees to fall back in the lien repayment order, allowing a smaller loan to jump ahead of them
Okay.
to do home improvements, which will only increase the value and not wipe out their position if they have to foreclose.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You should write these books.
Yeah,
Oh, don't get me started. I actually did. I wrote a book. I was almost done with it, and my laptop's hard drive went,
That's a shame.
and it was not recoverable. I sent it out to the data recovery place. It wasn't recoverable. Me formerly being in IT, I'm smacking myself in the head because I should have known better. But all the time and effort gathering the information, gathering copyright permissions to use certain materials and all kinds of stuff like that, developing graphics and all that, all lost. I vowed one day to write a book again, but that hasn't happened. Just haven't had the time again to do it. But yeah, I have all these explanations and such that to summarize things down a bit. So maybe I'll write a summary like that girl did in class, and make sure everything is correct and updated and use that. All right. When all mortgage loan payments have been made and the note paid off in full, the mortgagee, that's the lender, is required to execute a release of mortgage or a satisfaction of mortgage. And what's the clause that requires them to do that? What do you call it when you've defeated the loan? What's the clause?
Defeated.
Defeasance clause. The defeasance clause.
Oof.
Defeasance clause.
Yeah. Okay, so actually, I may even write that here on this slide. How about that?
When you defeat the loan, defeasance clause.
Yeah, as required by the defeasance clause that the lender. Okay. As required by the defeasance clause. As required by the defeasance clause. There you go. That's good enough. as required by the defeasance clause. Goodness. Or as the lender is required to do per the defeasance clause. There we go. As the lender is required to do per the defeasance clause. How about that? Yeah, that's good. That's better explanation. As the lender is required to do per the defeasance clause. Yeah, that sounds good. All right, so and then here's the reduction certificate. That's the document that the lender signs. The borrower signs the estoppel certificate. So, you know, they said here, when a mortgage is being assumed or paid off, the borrower is requiring, but the borrower requires a statement from the mortgagee detailing the amount currently due. The reduction certificate is often and wrongly referred to as an estoppel certificate. Yeah, because the estoppel certificate is what the borrower signs. The reduction certificate is what the lender signs. Okay, so satisfaction of mortgage lien. Okay, so we got these definitions now in my words over here. The documents recorded in a public record by lenders stating the loan has been repaid in full. The lender has no further claim on the property. The defeasance clause is what requires the lender to file the satisfaction of mortgage lien in the public records once you paid it off. Boom. Now, assuming a seller's mortgage loan is taking over someone else's loan. Now, if the person who assumed that loan does not make the payments as they're required, well, that primary mortgagor never gives up their liability. Just like when they do it with when somebody takes over your lease, okay? Now, most loans these days are not assumable, meaning people cannot just take them over. And those loans that are out there these days that are assumable usually have some sort of a clause in them that would state that the borrower who is going to just simply take over the loan has to still qualify for the loan. In the past, they did not. Now, all VA loans are assumable, and same thing with FHA loans. They're assumable. But the borrower who's assuming them needs to qualify in the normal way. And the lender could reject the loan from being assumed, especially if it's at a lower interest rate. Ooh, so you see the reason why they don't want you to assume loans? They want the new borrower to get their own loan, pay for the origination fees and all that so the lender can make money, and hopefully get it at a higher current market rate interest. So they make money. The alienation clause, what does alienation mean? It's a transfer of property, right? So the alienation clause, if we pertaining to mortgages, basically says anytime you transfer the property that the loan needs to be paid off in full. So it's also known as the resale or due on sale clause for that reason. Upon transfer of ownership, the loan has to be paid off in full. The purpose is to prevent the loan from being assumed and taken over by anybody, especially if it's at a lower interest rate. Loans without an alienation clause, however, can be assumed and taken over by a new owner who can continue just making the mortgage payments on the existing loan. This could be beneficial if that loan is at a lower interest rate than currently available in the market to those who get new loans and currently in the current market, and the new owner wouldn't have to qualify for the loan or pay any closing costs, saving money. And most newer assumable loans require that the new owner to qualify. Most newer assumable loans require the new owner to qualify. Okay. So that wording needs to be adjusted a bit. Let me see. What do we got there? New loans without an alienation clause can be assumed, taken over by the new owner, who can just continue making payments on the existing loan. This could be beneficial if that loan is at a lower interest rate than currently available to those who get new loans in the current market. And the new owner wouldn't have to qualify for the loan or pay any closing costs. Most newer assumable loans require the new owner qualify for them. Or new owner be approved and qualify. All right. Alienation clause. So therefore, we're going to highlight is also known as the due on sale clause. And when a real estate loan is made, the lender wishes to prevent some future purchaser from just taking over that loan. Alienation clause is also known as the resale or due on sale clause. It's there to prevent somebody from just being able to take over the loan when it's being resold. Okay.
Good.
All right, so how does foreclosure work? How does that process go down? Well, when the borrower defaults in any of the obligations of the mortgage, this may result in foreclosure. So the lender typically gives the borrower 30 days to cure those defaults, to get caught up, to fix whatever the problem is. Then a lis pendens is recorded in the public records as a public notice of possible future legal action against the owner or the property. So foreclosure in New Jersey is a legal process, has to go through the court system. It's a judicial foreclosure here in New Jersey. So it's a legal process of the lien holder, the lender, taking ownership of the property through a court action, which has been pledged as collateral for the loan. The first step in starting foreclosure is enacting the acceleration clause. What is the acceleration clause? It's the first step in foreclosure. It calls and declares the entire debt due and owing immediately. Then if you can't pay it immediately, then the lender may ask the courts to order a foreclosure. And then an auction called a sheriff's sale will ensue. Before a sheriff's sale can take place, all interested parties, including the renters, if there's renters involved, need to be made aware that the foreclosure is in progress. All right, so this could be where problems start now, because if the renters find out that the property owner is getting foreclosed on because they're behind on their mortgage, sometimes they get this attitude about them. Well, if they're not paying their bills, why should I pay mine? Because you're living in someone else's house, you deadbeat, and you don't know what their situation is. You just know they're in danger of foreclosure. And you're only going to make the problem worse if you stop paying them, that there's no way that they'll be able to get caught up in that. It's what they may be trying to do right now so they don't have to lose their house. So this is where tenants start becoming a nuisance problem for the owner of the property, because they're required by law to be notified that a foreclosure is in progress. So I always notify, if at this point I'm already working with the homeowner, I notify them. I tell them right away, I was like, your tenants are going to be notified. So you should have a conversation with them or at least send them a notice that they're going to get a notice that you're in foreclosure, but you're trying to prevent this from happening, and that if they're still required to pay their rent on time, and if they don't, they will face legal action of eviction, and that will remain on their credit report. So don't do it. Make sure you continue paying your bills. Okay. And I suggest that a landlord do go after any tenants who try to screw them over and just not pay the rent now. Start that eviction process immediately against them to get them out. One thing, as your foreclosure has nothing to do with them paying rent or not. So if they stop paying the rent, you go after them because they're trying to screw you. You better take it personally, you know? So before a sheriff's sale can take place, all interested parties, including the renters, need to be made aware of the foreclosures in progress. And the sheriff's sale needs to be advertised in the local newspapers for 4 weeks, and as well as the paper in Trenton. So the sheriff's sale or auction may be delayed twice for 2 weeks by the mortgagor, that's the borrower, and twice for 2 weeks by their lender, the mortgagee. So if somebody's in foreclosure, they're in danger of foreclosure, can we still sell their property and avoid the foreclosure process? Yes, we can. So if they contact us early enough, we could have probably listed it for a premium market value and try to get the most money we can. But if they're already getting notices that a sheriff's auction's been scheduled, and now they're reaching out to us because now they're finally seeing that the crap is hitting the fan and it's time to take action. Sometimes they wait such a long time. Sometimes they notify us after a sheriff's sales notification. Sometimes they notify us just when they start getting the notices in the mail of foreclosure, but before a sheriff's sale's been scheduled. So it's an important question to ask people when they call you to list their property for sale. Is your property in distress? Okay, so how is it in distress? Are you going through foreclosure, behind on your mortgage payments? Are you going through divorce? What's going on? Okay, so your possible foreclosure. Have you received a notification yet from the lender that the sheriff's department has scheduled an auction yet? No, that's good. Now we could try to market the property, and we have a little time to market it to find a buyer. Well, that's good, but we're not going to be asking top dollar. We're going to be a little aggressive with our pricing to try to attract buyers. So now we attract a buyer. We get somebody who makes an offer on the property. We may limit it to buyers who can purchase using cash loans or loans that they're already approved, cash or loans that they're already approved on, not pre-qualified, but approved for. Because we know that they get closed quicker and that they're already approved. So now when somebody goes under contract, how long does it take to close your typical transaction? Anybody? How long does it take to close on the average house? The real estate transaction, how long does that take?
Oh, I was trying to think how.
It's typically 45 to 60 days, I'd say, tied with 60 days more.
Oh, would have been off.
Okay.
Well,
What's that?
it took me a while. That's why I was like, 3 months?
Well, it can take
Yep.
more time, but your typical real estate transaction is 60 days. You know, short sales and things like that, they could take a much longer. But this is we're going to do this, and we're going to try to avoid that from happening. Selling it and getting enough money to pay off the proceed, the loan, and the seller can actually walk away with some profit from the sale. You know, not everybody who gets foreclosed on owes a lot of money on their house. Sometimes people come to me that the house was almost paid off. They only needed like 1 or 2 payments left to make, and they get foreclosed on and lose their house.
Wow.
Ridiculous is that? If they reached out to me earlier, I could have definitely sold their house, got enough money to pay off what's owed on the loan, and they could walk away with a ton of profit. So if that is the case, though, even if they get foreclosed on, the lender, the sheriff's auction is going to have way more profit after paying the lenders off, the lien holders off. But they don't get to keep that. They got to return that from the homeowner to their homeowner who was foreclosed on, that excess amount. Remember, the foreclosure is only there to pay back the lender what's owed. It's not there for them to make extra money on the property if they could get it. So we could still sell somebody's property and maybe they could walk away with some profit. I mean, that's not always the case where they got, the house mostly paid off, but you can find it quite a lot. But usually it's people owe a lot of money, they get foreclosed on. So we're going to try to sell the property. And if we get it under contract and then we get notified, I tell that owner, notify us if they get notified of a scheduled sheriff's sale. Now, once the sheriff's sale has been scheduled, we'll make note of the date. And then as that date gets close, like a couple days before the sale, we're going to have that seller's attorney reach out and delay the closing once for 2 weeks. Then after that, we're going to wait for the sheriff's sale to be rescheduled again, get a notification again, wait till the last minute, and then we'll delay it again for 2 weeks, trying to buy as much time as we can. And then if that's still not enough time to close on the property, to the transaction for the sale, if it gets down to that point again, we reach out to the lender and we have the lender delay the sale once for 2 weeks. And then if that's not enough time, we wait for the sheriff's department to schedule another sale. We're buying time is what we're trying to do. Now, let's just say we exhaust all that time and the sheriff's sale scheduled and it occurs and somebody bids at auction and they win the house at auction. They're not the owner of that house just yet. The balance of whatever they bid to pay for the house has to be paid within 10 days of the auction, at which time the sheriff's department will deliver the deed to that winner of the auction 10 days after the sale. Within that 10-day period, though, if we're still able to manage to successfully close on the sale of the property, it basically undoes the auction. That winning bidder at the auction just gets their money back. They don't get the deed, they don't get the ownership. But if we're not able to close within that time frame, they're now the owner, and there's no further right of redemption for the homeowner after the auction, and that deed is delivered. Okay, so no further right of redemption exists in New Jersey after that 10-day period where that deed is delivered in exchange. So that's how foreclosure process works. And it is possible to save somebody, even if they're already in foreclosure and the foreclosure auction is scheduled, we could still possibly save them from that, losing their house. So let's highlight this in the book that talks about auctions on page 260. Let's just highlight the successful bidder must pay cash 20% at the auction and the rest within 10 days until a sheriff's deed is delivered to the buyer. Now, there's no such thing really called a sheriff's deed. They call it a sheriff's deed because on the top of it, it says sheriff's deed. But there's no document that's actually called a sheriff's deed. The sheriff's deed actually uses what's known as a bargain and sale deed. When we get into actual types of deeds, it's called a bargain and sale deed, and it just says sheriff's deed on top. So that's why I made this notation on the side in the book here. If you guys want to, you could do that as well. Bargain and sale deed says sheriff's deed on top. But the type of deed, there's no such deed as a sheriff's deed. for exam questions that they may give you here, yeah, but there's nothing really called a sheriff's deed. The sheriff's deed is actually a bargain and sale type deed, which we'll get into in chapter 19 types of deeds. Okay, let me know when you guys got this.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Excuse me.
So a deed in lieu of foreclosure. That means a deed instead of foreclosure. So it is possible that instead of going through the whole sale rigmarole, you can have a, you could just give the deed back to the lender if they agree to it. This would avoid any foreclosure if the lender agrees to it. Usually you're not going to be contacting the lender to offer to just sign the ownership back over to them, especially if it's at the point already where the auction's occurring. At that point, it's probably already too late. They'll say, well, we'll just do the auction. But a deed in lieu of foreclosure is an alternative to foreclosure where the borrower, the mortgagor, signs the deed back over to the lender. Now, this is also known as friendly foreclosure because it's done by an agreement rather than through the court actions. So therefore, there's no foreclosure on your credit report. And the lender is the one, though, who takes a risk by accepting a deed in lieu of foreclosure because the judicial process of foreclosure would have wiped out any liens on the property. But if the lender just agrees to take back the property because you signed a deed over to them, you may have other liens on the property still that are attached to the property. And if the lender just takes the ownership back, well, they take the ownership back along with any other liens that are attached to it and that they become responsible for paying back. So that's a risk. That's the risk to the lender. Now, the risk to the borrower is that if the lender manages to resell that property within 90 days of you giving that ownership back to them, and they experience a deficiency on what you owed them, they can go to court and seek a deficiency judgment against you to pay off that difference. That's known as a deficiency judgment. You were deficient in paying them back X amount, so they get a judgment for that deficiency. That's what a deficiency judgment is. Okay. So we do short sales for people sometimes. That whole short sale process, we could try to get a buyer. Sometimes we get a buyer, but then the lender doesn't accept them because they think they could get more money, and it could be a process. It could be a long, drawn out process. So sometimes the lenders would reach out to the borrower and say, "Hey, listen, just sign it back over to us, because even with a short sale, you're not going to make any money." So that's one possibility, but they take the risk that if the lender resells the property and experiences deficiency, they can still chase after you. Whereas if you did a short sale, the lender is going to agree not to chase after you because we're going to, as their representatives, we're going to work with that lender to try to call it paid, settled, less than full amount owed. And that's the way it'll show on their credit report. So they don't chase after you for any deficiencies. Only in the event you had more than one loan on the house that was outstanding when we were doing a short sale, could those junior lien holders chase after you for a deficiency. But we are going to try to negotiate with them as well. And if they don't agree to play ball, we could tell them, hey, well, then screw you. The seller's just going to let it go to foreclosure. You're going to get wiped out and you're not going to get anything. So we can work with them that way. Now, the short sale is when the owner sells their property for less than what is owed on it, therefore shortchanging the lender. However, if the lender needed to foreclose and then sell the property at auction, what are they going to get out for it anyway? Whatever the current market value is. So it's not like they're going to get more money. So a lender usually agrees to sell the property with that buyer, with that seller, as long as that seller agrees to play ball, working with the bank, trying to sell the property for as much money as they can, but as quickly as they can. And then the lender will work with them and then accept a lesser amount than what is owed. and agree to not chase after you for any deficiencies. Any junior lien holders, the primary loan will give them 10% of what was owed on their loan if they agree just to play ball and then go away. And then we try to negotiate with them to sign that paid, settled, less than full amount owed document, so that they don't chase after our client for any deficiencies. Once again, that deficiency judgment is a court order to repay a shortfall of repayment of debt, the amount the borrower is deficient in repaying. And a bank-owned property is referred to as real estate owned. It's real estate owned by the bank, so it's a REO. So when you hear that term REO property, that means it's a bank-owned property. It's been foreclosed on. The bank now owns it free and clear, no other liens or debts on it. Now, they don't try to hold on to this inventory. They will try to sell it and list that property with real estate agents to try to sell it for them. So, but what do we call bank-owned properties? They're referred to as REO. That's real estate owned by the bank. Okay. Anybody need to take a picture? Could I change the slide?
I did.
So let's highlight this stuff now that I just explained, and then the little notes that I made right here. And we're almost done with this chapter. Just let me know when you got it all down. And remember, I wrote this in over here. REO, real estate owned, bank owned property without liens.
Okay, got it.
How you doing, Yvonne? Wakey, wakey. You good?
Oh, sorry. Let me just take a.
Okay.
And then, okay. Okay.
All right, so I have a couple short little videos here about something. At the beginning of this chapter, we talked about there's two parts of a mortgage, the mortgage and the note. The mortgage, the note is the financing instrument, and the mortgage is the promise to pay. Now, anybody who you owe money to is going to have a problem trying to collect a debt that you owe them if they can't prove that you owe them. What is the lender's proof that you owe the money? It's the note. The
No,
note is what holds you personally liable for the full outstanding amount owed. But what if the lender cannot locate it? What if they lost it? Can they foreclose on you still? Can they go through with this foreclosure process? They may have a problem with that.
Yep.
So,
Hi, I'm joining today by Peter Murphy and Terry Smiljanich. Tell us why ConsumerWarningNetwork.com got some national play this past week with an idea to helping people in foreclosures, and that is what?
That is called Produce the Note.
And Show Me the Money?
You show me the money, exactly. It's on our website, and it's received a lot of national attention. AP, CNN, ABC, a lot of different entities. And what it
don't bother going to that website. It's not up anymore. Okay. I guess they'll put it back up again later on if we experience another wave of foreclosures and short sales. But they're not. That website's not up anymore. But they helped a lot of people with that. They're just a bunch of attorneys.
is, it's an attempt to provide some help to people that are in foreclosure and who are just simply trying to slow things down, so that maybe they can work with the bank a little more, because the bank's not returning their calls, is not willing to work with them. They hear about these Obama plans and other plans, and they'd like to participate in them. But meanwhile, the sheriff's knocking on the door and they're going to be foreclosed next week. Well, what we talk about on our website is the idea of a simple request to the lender who's suing you, saying, let me see the note. You say, I owe you this money and it's based on a note, a mortgage. Let me see the original note, not a copy of it. Let me see the original, because
Not a
whoever
copy.
holds that original is the one that has the right, to enforce the debt.
I thought these things had been sliced and diced and chopped
Well-
up and bundled and sent off to wherever.
The problem
Is
is
that right?
there's still an original note somewhere.
Somewhere.
But it's been chopped up and diced and sold and resold and resold. And what the banks, what it forces the mortgage lender to do is say, ooh, where is the note? And they have to go find it. And maybe sometimes they can't find it. They can still go to court and say, well, we can't find the note, but here's the proof that we have that we're the appropriate. So it's not a way to help like deadbeats or something, to just stay in a home for free.
Because
What
if
it
you
is,
find the note, you're still going to be foreclosed.
you're still going to be foreclosed on.
So-
But if it buys you an extra 8 months, where you can work with the bank and try to modify, and maybe also people that have adopted the strategy, what we've seen often is that because they've taken that approach, suddenly the lender has gotten a lot more interested in returning their phone calls, working with
It
them.
gets them actually in,
Gets them-
in dialogue with
The squeaky,
right.
the squeaky wheel gets the oil, and so they get a little more attention from the bank, and they're willing to maybe work with them. So
Wow.
it's not a magic bullet of any kind, but it is an approach that people who are in those kind of desperate straits where they're about to have their property sold out from underneath their feet, to buy some time to see if they can work something out.
And you've seen it work for people.
Oh, we've seen it work for people, and there's lawyers in other states that have told us they've adopted this strategy, and they found that courts are very receptive to it.
Show me the note.
Show me the note.
It's fascinating.
Right.
And if people, he said it's not really for deadbeats. Well, you know what? It can be if they know what they're doing. It is possible to get the lender's claim of foreclosure and them to continue harassing you and going after you for a payment that they can't prove that you owe. If you're savvy and you know how to do it, it is possible to get out of that loan, and that the lender has to stop harassing you and chasing you for it and just give up on it. Now, look, I remember reading an article. I just remembered the name of it. It was called "The Foreclosure from Hell," and this was a lady who had a lot of knowledge about how banks and foreclosures and stuff worked, because she used to work for a loan originator for a bank, and her husband died. She was already retired. And she drew out this foreclosure. She stopped making the mortgage payments on her house. And she drew out this foreclosure for like 25 years. 25 years. Let me see if I can find this article for you. Usually it's on websites that you got to pay for, but let me see if I can find it. The foreclosure from hell. I'm just doing a Google search on this really quick. Yeah, the 25-year, the Wall Street Journal. There you can see this. The
How
Wall
is that
Street
possible?
Journal, the 25-year foreclosure from hell. There's plenty of stories on this. The law firm avoiding foreclosure. Okay. It was interesting. There was this lady in Florida. She had this house, and basically she knows you got to pay to subscribe to this in order to get access to it. But you know what? I actually rebuilt this story somewhere. Let me check my notes really quick. I have it in, I do have a note about this where I was recreating this story, even with, I got pictures and stuff, but I don't know where the pictures are as of right now, but I may be able to pull up the story because I did rewrite the story. Let me see, foreclosure hell. Where I was able to get it. Here we go, foreclosure from hell.
How is that possible?
Well, you know the law. I mean, criminals know how to game the system all the time, right? They know the law.
That's true.
This is a lady that she used the law to her benefit. You know, when you got a bad tenant, a deadbeat tenant that you're
Yeah.
renting to, and they don't want to get out, you don't wait for the last minute for the court date to come up, and then they'll postpone the court date because of an emergency or whatever. And then they'll keep denying different dates. Oh, I can't do that date. Oh, I can't do that date. I can't do that date because of whatever. Then eventually they finally set another court date. She goes into court, and then, or she or he goes into court, and then they say, we need to postpone it because I need to get this paperwork or this for you. So then they get it delayed and rescheduled. When it goes to get rescheduled, then they deny. I can't make that date. I want to reschedule it. I want to reschedule, and they just keep delaying and delaying and delaying. So this lady knew the law and what lenders are required to do and documentation and notices that they needed to do. And she just kept playing it off and doing all these delays and stuff. The loan would eventually get sold to another lender in what we call mortgage-backed securities. And then they got to start all over again with the foreclosure process eventually.
Yeah,
And they don't do it right away. And so she did this on and on and on for 25 years before she finally got kicked out. Let me see. So I pulled it up. I found the story that I wrote. So I'm just going to read it here for you. Now, this was last updated and I checked. She was still alive as of December 2022. At the age of 83 years of age.
Oh my God.
Let me click on, I got a link here. Oh, that's my research where I searched for it and the house involved. Okay, so I got an aerial view of it. Okay, that's not good. All right, so let me continue just reading the story to you guys as I've written it. Okay, so we got the Wall Street Journal. We also got the Daily Beast and the UK. Hold on. Let me see if these are stories that I could show you with some basics of it. Okay, there's one. It's got a part of the story there. Let me look up the other one. All right. Okay, and this is another part of the story with some of the images. But I basically rewrote the story. So let me show you the website. Okay, so this is the lady. This is Patsy Campbell, the 25-year-old foreclosure from hell who hasn't made a mortgage payment since 1985. Okay, I guess here's her house now, finally boarded up. This is a house in Florida here. But she did a good job fighting the foreclosure. 71-year-old retired insurance saleswoman has been living in her house, a 2-story on a half-acre, tidy middle-class neighborhood in Florida, Central Florida, since 1978. The last time she made a mortgage payment was in October 1985. And yet she's been able to keep her house protected by a 105-pound pit bull named Dodger and a locked, rusty gate advising visitors to beware of the dog. They're not going to take this house, says Miss Campbell. I intend to stay in this house and maintain it as my residence until I die. And Miss Campbell's foreclosure case outlasted 2 marriages, 3 recessions, and 4 presidents. She's seen 7 great grandchildren born, plum real estate markets come and go, and the ownership of her mortgage changed 6 times. Many Florida real estate lawyers say it's the longest lasting foreclosure case they've ever seen or heard of. The story of how her case came about. So basically, let's see what happened. She managed to avoid paying both her mortgage and losing her home, which currently is assessed at more than $203,000. It's a cautionary tale for lenders that cut corners and follow sloppy practices when originating, processing, and servicing mortgages. Lenders are especially vulnerable in the 23 states, including Florida, that require foreclosures be approved by a judge. New Jersey is one of them judicial foreclosure states too. So Ms. Campbell has changed her foreclosure on the grounds that her mortgage was improperly transferred between banks and federal agencies, that lawyers for the bank had waited too long to prosecute the case, that a Florida law shields her from her creditors, and for dozens of other reasons. Once she questions whether there really was a debt at all, saying that the lender improperly separated the note from the mortgage contract. She has managed to stave off banks partly because several courts have recognized that some of her legal arguments do have some merit to them. However minor they are, they have merit. 2 foreclosure actions against her, for example, were thrown out because the lender sat on its hands too long after filing the case and lost its window to foreclose. Miss Campbell, who is handling her own case these days without a lawyer, has learned how to work the ropes of the legal system so well that she has met every attempt by a lender to repossess her home with multiple appeals and counteractions, burying the plaintiffs facing her under piles of paperwork, just like they would do for the homeowner, right? She offers no apologies for not paying her mortgage for 25 years, saying that when foreclosure is in dispute, borrowers are entitled to stop making payments until the courts resolve the matter. So this is every lender's nightmare, says a real estate lawyer here who represents Commercial Services of Perry, an Iowa-based buyer distribution distressed debt that actually bought and currently owns Miss Campbell's mortgage, and they're the ones trying to focus on foreclosing on her now, and they eventually did. But she wasn't foreclosed on until, hold on, it's not in that story. It's on, is it on this website? No, this was back in 2010. She still was not foreclosed on. This gives a little more details about it. Okay, let me look at my story here that I have. It's not on that website either. I do have a date here when she eventually got foreclosed. Well, what was it, 1985, 95, 2005. Okay, wait, 2005, 2010. Okay, so it was 2010 where she finally got foreclosed on. That's 25 years later. Anyway, I got a big write-up and story about this that I'm going to write up, and I'm going to use actual photos. And I already wrote up a story on it. I have the notes that I pulled up, but I'm not going to sit here reading it. I just read this other story to you. So we're going to move on with the class. But just to show you that if you know the laws, you know the rules, you can fight foreclosure and use the system's rules, right? They have to prove that you have the debt. And how do they prove it? The original document, the original mortgage documents that you signed with the wet pen signature when you closed on the purchase of that house. You notice that you could use digital signatures are legal, and they usually use them for refinancing houses. But even with refinancing, there's some documents you actually need to wet sign and meet with a notary, right? But to purchase a house, to get that loan initially, you have to actually sign the documents. There's no digital signatures on those loans. It has to be actual wet signatures. So let's go back to that slideshow here and watch the rest of this. This is just kind of interesting, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Very.
Hello, I'm Angie Moreski. The important question now is how can you use the Produce the Note strategy to help you save your home? Attorney John Yanchunas is joining us today to help give you some tips on how to proceed. John, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, first question here, is this something that anybody facing foreclosure can use?
Everybody should use it. Everybody should put the lender to the task of establishing that it owns the debt that it claims that you owe to it.
Now, is that a good indicator? I noticed as I've looked through some of the mortgage foreclosure complaints that the lenders file with the court, some of them actually have these counts in them that say reestablishment of note. And then the wording is actually the mortgage note has either been lost or destroyed, and the plaintiff is unable to state the manner in which this has occurred. They're admitting that they lost or destroyed the note.
Well, obviously, that's the best sign available that the lender doesn't have the note mortgage any longer.
So if you see that, or if you want to just try Produce the Note strategy, what's the first thing you should do?
Request through discovery that instrument be produced to you. Once that's served on the lawyer representing the plaintiff's lawyer has got to respond within 30 days with the document requested. If it does not, then the consumer needs to go to court and ask the court to compel the plaintiff to produce that document.
So literally a letter or a document that you send to the court, and we'll have a template on the website to help people through that process. And why is that so important to prove what?
Well, it's important to prove that the lending institution that is suing you on a note or to foreclose your home is in fact the owner of the debt. The lending institution, which originated the note and mortgage, the debt, may no longer be the owner. It may have transferred it to another institution, which in turn may have transferred it to another lending institution, and so on and so forth.
And you should also be careful looking at the fees and penalties that they're rolling into this request. Is that right?
That can be collected like property inspection fees, late charges, but so frequently we found that some lending institutions collect sums of money which are simply made up. They're, I think, designed to increase the lender's bottom line. For instance, a foreclosure fee, a pre-bankruptcy fee.
So keep an eye on all those fees which may be unfair and unwarranted.
Absolutely. In fact, you should ask the lender for proof that that sum of money was paid.
And obviously, if you're behind in your mortgage, this is not a way to just get your house for free. What are we trying to do here?
Well, it gives the consumer leverage or buys the consumer time to work out with that lending institution a repayment plan of the arrearage or the default.
Do you think judges will be receptive to this?
Oh, absolutely. I've tried it many times. I've done it for many years. Judges expect lawyers and parties who come before them to adhere to the letter of the law.
So if I'm the homeowner and I end up before a judge, what do I say? What's my plea?
Well, what I want is the lender to produce the original note and mortgage. If they cannot, then put them to the task of establishing why they can't and that they are in fact the owner of the note and mortgage. And of course, more importantly, or just as important, that every element of the debt the lender claims that the consumer owes is in fact owed.
And the ultimate goal here is perhaps to get the lenders to be more receptive to negotiating fair terms so that a homeowner can actually stay in that home and keep their home.
Absolutely. The whole concept of equity, which is the principle which allows mortgages to be foreclosed, is a concept of fairness. And one of the most important principles in equity is equity abhors a forfeiture. That means that property that secures an obligation should not be forfeited unless the letter of the law has been followed.
It's a pretty big thing to lose your home, so you should fight for it.
It's the most important asset that any consumer will ever have.
Okay, John, thank you very much. We appreciate your time here today.
Thank you.
That is true. Now, here's a situation where a lady actually uses this to help save her in-laws' house. And the first time that this has even been challenged in a California court.
With so many people losing their homes, this report from 7 on Your Side can help. You could be able to freeze a foreclosure by saying 3 simple words. Michael Finney is here tonight with what they are. And Michael,
What are those words? Well, see if you're paying attention. Guess not. Produce the note.
Duh.
Yeah, the idea is really pretty simple. The homeowner saying to the lender, produce the note. Now, that's shorthand for prove I owe you the money. American mortgages have been sliced and diced, bundled into complex financial vehicles, then sold around the world.
I think the note's been sold on so many times and they've become very sloppy with their paperwork. It could be on a dumpster somewhere, for all I know.
And for all the banking and financial managers know too. And that's becoming a safety net for homeowners. If the loan servicer can't prove they're collecting the money legally, the homeowner is off the hook, at least temporarily.
We've never seen a company produce the original note yet.
You hear that?
Prove they're collecting the money legally, the homeowner is off the hook, at least temporarily.
We've never seen a company produce the original note yet.
Attorney Chris Hoyer set up this website offering consumers advice and paperwork to pursue a produce the note strategy. In Florida, the strategy is forcing lenders to stop proceedings, buying homeowners precious time.
$20 going twice?
But it has apparently never been tried here in California. Till now.
They saved our house. He's the one that works day and night, day and night, day and night on this house. See, we don't understand none of this. She's the one that did it.
That's Isabel and Richard Caparelli. This is their home, and attempting to save it, Deborah Caparelli, their daughter-in-law. A different Florida attorney helped her by email.
First, he said, have your bankruptcy attorney file an amended schedule listing this property as unsecured. Okay, unsecured means that Saxon, the servicer, would have to stand up and say, it's secured, we have the note.
The Caparelli's attorney, Mark Boisnat, did that, allowing him to then say, produce the note. And today, the Caparellis went back to court, hoping to be the first in a long line of homeowners successfully using the produce the note strategy in California.
The judge gave us more time, and it seemed that they can't find the note yet. So we got hopes, lots of hopes.
Nothing was decided today, but the note has still not been produced.
They claim they have it, but I have no proof that they have this note. And so you would think by now, it's been almost 3 months, they would have pulled out a copy if they had it.
A recent study has found those documents are being lost an astounding 40% of the time. Now, even without the note, the banks can eventually collect if they can prove they have the legal right to a note and they can have another one issued. But that takes time, and for many in foreclosure, time is needed to straighten out their financial situations.
Produce the note.
Produce
3
the
words.
note.
It could save you some time.
Yep.
Thanks, Michael, very much.
Interesting stuff, huh? And if you guys ever come across this where the mortgage market turns around a little bit, foreclosures start up, well, then this is going to become a popular strategy that we as real estate agents need to use with lenders who are not being receptive to working with our clients. You could get them to ask them to produce the note, you know, if they actually go to court. Most borrowers, they just put their heads in the sand and hope the problem goes away when they're getting notices. They know they're behind on their mortgage payment, so they know that they really don't have a strategy when they go to court, but actually they do. They could just ask the lender to produce the note. Now, they feel ingenuous about this because they know that they haven't been making the mortgage payments, so they feel like that they're lying and they could get in trouble for this. But no, you got the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination. Don't say anything to self-incriminate yourself. Just ask the lender to produce the note and prove that I owe you the money. You're going after me. You need to prove that I did something wrong, right?
Yeah.
With so many people losing their home,
Okay, how about this one? Anybody ever hear of a homeowner foreclosing on a bank?
No.
This lady bought a house, Bank of America, all cash. She never had a loan from them. She bought a house from them that they foreclosed on someone else. So she bought it directly from them, a bank-owned property, all cash. Because they couldn't find a loan on her, they figure she's been defaulting on making it, and there was some human error involved, and they tried to foreclose on her. She proved that she was in the right, and so then she had to pay, the bank had to pay her legal fees and such. But then they refused to do that just for ignoring her, not communicating. They owed her money now. And so in order to collect it, she foreclosed on the bank.
As a foreclosure defense attorney, this is sweet justice.
Only on Wink tonight, the tables are turned. Instead of Bank of America foreclosing on a home, a homeowner has deputies foreclose on the bank.
Bank of America filed foreclosure papers on a homeowner who didn't owe a dime. They paid for their house with cash.
They still live at the Bank of America branch on Davis Boulevard in Naples with this story you'll see only on Wink tonight.
This is about a family who fought back and won. Their foreclosure nightmare started when they bought a house in the Golden Gate Estates owned by Bank of America. Like you said, they paid cash, so they never had a mortgage. Well, Bank of America fouled it up somewhere along the lines and actually tried to foreclose on the family. And what happened today, you're just going to have to see to believe. Movers, a truck, and an armed deputy, all while a nervous homeowner stands by and waits. This is normally what you'd see when a person's being foreclosed on and their property seized by a bank. But today, it's the other way around.
They've ignored our calls, ignored our letters. Legally, this is the next step to get my clients compensated.
A Collier County judge said Bank of America had to pay Maureen Nairges and her husband's legal fees after the bank tried to foreclose on their Golden Gate Estates property, but they paid cash. The courts agreed they never had a mortgage to begin with. After more than 5 months, the bank still hadn't paid up. So the homeowner's attorney did just what the bank would do to get their money, seize their assets.
I instructed the deputy to go in and take desks, computers, copiers, filing cabinets, including cash in the drawers.
Outside the bank, several deputies stood by with movers ready to start hauling out the bank's office supplies and furniture. Inside, the homeowner's attorney was locked out of the bank manager's office by deputies, while the bank manager tried to figure out what to do.
He was visibly shaken. Having two sheriff's deputies sitting across your desk and a lawyer standing up behind them, demanding whatever assets are in the bank, it can be intimidating. But so is having your home foreclosed on when it wasn't right.
After about an hour, the bank finally cut a check.
As a foreclosure defense attorney, this is sweet justice, because this is a symptom of a larger problem.
Now, the homeowner's attorney says that he sees mistakes all the time in foreclosure court where banks do not do their due diligence, and it winds up becoming a very lengthy process for the homeowners. He says he can only think of one other time where an attorney, the deputies, and a U-Haul came to a bank before ready to seize property. That was in Tampa. As far as Bank of America, they issued a statement saying that they apologize for the wait on the payment. They issued a notice to pay from the attorney that was working on the case on their side, but they didn't know the attorney went out of business. We'll be reporting live here in Naples. Renee Stoll, Wink News now.
Likely story, Bank of America. But that's interesting. Usually that's what the banks are doing to a homeowner, kicking them out of their house, seizing their assets, right? Hey, why not do it the other way around? All right, so this is that concludes chapter 13. Let's do the key terms to review for it. There is one key term to review on page 262. Let's start by saying who is the lender? Lender. What's another word for lender?
Mortgagee.
Yeah.
The mortgagee. 11 is A. Mortgagee. Pledging of property as security without surrendering possession of that property.
Acceleration form?
Hypothecation.
Hypothecation, the upper crusty sounding word. It's
Okay.
a mortgage is an example of hypothecation. You're pledging that property as security for the debt or security for the loan, but you're not giving up that property. You're living in it. 9 is B. Written pledge of real estate as security for the loan. What is the pledge? The promise to pay.
A mortgage.
The mortgage. 10 is C. Property acquired by lenders. What do we call property that is now owned by the lender? The bank-owned property.
Oh, REO.
REO. 15 is D. A clause ensuring that after repayment, the lender has no claim on the property.
The defense clause?
Defeasance clause. Yeah,
I got
it. 5 is E, the defeasance clause. Sounds like defeated. Correct. 5 is E. A borrower's statement of how much remains on the mortgage debt. What the interest rate was, what the original loan amount was, what the monthly payment is.
Certificate.
The estoppel certificate. 7 is F. Court order that the borrower pay money lost by the lender after foreclosure. Because you didn't pay them back everything that was owed. They were unable to recoup it all, so they're going to try to get that shortfall back from you.
Deficiency judgment.
The deficiency judgment. 6 is G. Borrower. Who is the borrower?
Mortgage.
How come you got it when I say it like that? See, the singing part works. The mortgagor is the borrower.
The mortgagor.
12 is H.
Hypothecation.
A clause stating that If property is sold, the debt is immediately payable.
Alienation clause. No,
No, wait, what'd you say?
or did I say it wrong?
No,
Alienation clause?
I didn't hear it.
Alienation clause?
Yes, 2 is I, the alienation clause. Proceeding to auction foreclosed real estate. What do we call it? Yeah, it's called a sheriff's sale, correct. 18 is J. Charging higher interest than is allowed by law. Showed you a little cartoon about it.
Oh, usury.
Usury, correct. 20 is K. Failure to live up to any part of a mortgage agreement. What do you call it when you break the contractual terms?
Oh, you're in default?
You're in default, correct. 4 is L. See what I mean by asking a question about the question, then all of a sudden, boom, oh.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, so 4 is L. Lender's statement that the debt has been repaid in full.
Satisfaction of mortgage.
Satisfaction of mortgage lien, correct. 16 is M. Personal promise to repay money, similar to a note, but it's not used here in New Jersey.
It's a bond.
A bond. 3 is N. Lender's statement of how much remains on the debt. The lender's statement. Similar to an estoppel certificate.
Reduction certificate.
Reduction certificate. 14 is O. An arrangement by a, I'm sorry?
No, I'm just coughing.
Okay. Sure. Lender state, okay, so we just did that. 14 was O. Arrangement by which the mortgage holder gives up their priority, agreeing to drop back in the lien repayment order.
Subordination? Is it the
Yes, the subordination agreement. 19 is P. To seize and sell property pledged for a debt.
Foreclosure.
8 is Q. Clause stating that in case of default, the whole debt is immediately payable.
Acceleration clause.
They accelerate the terms of repayment, the acceleration clause. 1 is R. A document given to a purchaser of foreclosed property.
The sheriff's deed.
Sheriff's deed. 17 is S, even though the sheriff's deed is really a bargain and sale deed. A personal promise to repay a loan similar to a bond, but this is what we use in New Jersey.
The note.
The note, which is the financing instrument. So 13 is T.
We did good today, Yvonne.
I know. I'm like, oh.
This is an easy chapter to remember.
Yeah, the loan ones aren't, but that was actually the easier one of the mortgage ones. So not to put you off or anything, but let's get started on the next one. This chapter is probably the longest one on of the 3 for the lending, and we will have some math in it as well. Yeah. So calculators and scrap paper handy. We'll be doing some math in this chapter as well.
Say it ain't so.